first position, the blue Zerg player. He is Erik. Good times. Good times. Casting StarCraft, talking about TVZ, aliens puking all over each other with acid until they melt into nothing. It's really a remarkable time. Good long day of casting, by the way, Zombie Girl. It's been fun. It's been fun hanging out with you again, getting to talk about the video.
Ditto, Nate. Ditto. And, I'm actually glad to see ZVZ again. It feels like for a while there, it was way too much. And then it became kind of like the most hype ones and the most, I guess the ones that we would cast the most, like the Ace stream ended up being just, Rainer Versero all the time. And then, the Protoss uprising in Europe has really made it so it's no longer just the ZVZ. I guess maybe that's a little bit of Latin America now. So I'm happy to see it. I'm gonna be happy to see a close, if perhaps maybe kind of crazy ZVZ. Yeah, Erik was he was the one to fall most recently between these two, but as I was saying, it seems to be kind of back and forth between them. I did like Wardy's point of, bringing up that like Erik did spend time in Korea. There's actually a lot of promise for him, but I guess, directly translating that has never been like that simple, has it? Like lots of people have gone over to train over in Korea and they're like, oh, they're going to come back and be super amazing. And it's like, it's not, it's not that one-to-one, right? And Erik seems to be missing that consistency that would make him, I guess, one of the best players in this region, because I think he has the potential to be, but just kind of falls short, surprisingly short sometimes.
Yeah, he kind of has like those spikes up and down. He's not as consistently in the top four like a Special or a Kellizer or a Jam, in my opinion, but he's someone that he does get there. He's not a player to be discounted by any means at all. And I do think that he's somebody here that is a very competitive player. So I'm excited to see what he brings out. I am going to agree with you as well on it's not that bad seeing the ZVZs. It's not. We definitely had a bit too much of it for a bit of a stretch, but I've been happy. I think my favorite thing to see this year is just in general for DreamHack Masters. We've had a bit of a competitive uprising from some of the non-Korean Terrans and Protosses. Not enough from the Protosses for me. I want to see the Protoss continue to strive and grow, especially in the foreign scene. But yeah, we got a nice little matchup here. I think a little bit more evenly matched than some of the last two series. I mean, if we're just being honest with how one-sided those both ended up being. So I do think anything is actually possible on this one. This is the good ZVZ you guys are going to watch today. As far as is it going to last more than just a few minutes? But then again, sometimes high-level ZVZ also ends in just a couple of minutes. So that could also just be completely wrong.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It is, as far as all the mirror matchups go, I feel like every single one has found a stable place in terms of entertainment. If you actually talk to the PvPers themselves, they might disagree, but no, it's actually a lot of different build order variety, and that's something that Erik was actually very keen on finding out. What build order is this? So he got a faster third, and JimRising went for what I described in the previous series, like that no link speed, just right into roaches on two bases. So if he was to play this out in a normal fashion, he'd take a slower but more stable third base and then have skipped the Baneling phase. Erik adapted to this, I think. He canceled a Baneling nest and went for Roachborn instead. And then he knows that the next concern is my opponent doing like a +1 timing? Is he just going to all-in me? Is he going for a Nidus Worm? Or is he going for a Spire? And that's exactly what JimRising is going for. And he knew he couldn't hide it for very long. He's going to proudly show off the Spire and probably still go into it, but maybe stick around Roaches a little bit longer first.
Yeah, the interesting thing about this that you just pointed out as well is like you usually it's Roaches or a lot of Lings or something into Mutas, or it's just really fast Mutas. But in this case, JimRising's, he's kind of gone for, he bought the variety pack, Zombie Grub. He got the Zerg variety pack. We have a lot of Roaches coming out. Roach speed and +1 are both about to finish as, as it's going to freeze for a second there. But I digress. You have the option to both leverage that higher tech, but he still has the Roaches that he can actually do normal stuff with. And we are going to stare at you until this person drops and we can jump back into the game. Hello, I'm Nathan, and this is my friend Zombie Grub. She's pretty cool.
Yeah, I am pretty cool. Thank you. Yeah, you're pretty cool too, Nate. Oh, we're back in the game. The guy actually didn't drop out.
Oh my God! He saved himself.
Wow, came back from the brink. Just kidding.
Well, I'll be honest with you. If I'm a player, I would probably ask the guy who lagged left. So it is what it is.
Yeah, looks like he's not going to ask, but just was making sure, I guess.
I guess.
Was in the middle of something and then had to kind of reconfigure himself. So there we go.
It's all good.
Yeah, we're moving on. You were talking about the roach phase, I think, before that happened.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I was just saying, he's kind of doing both, right? He has the Spire really fast, and he's building mutas, but this is still a +1 speed roach timing. Like, he is still trying to hit with this attack. And even though with defender's advantage, Erik should be able to have more roaches, JimRising with roach speed, he can't be chased. You can't punish this army. You can't jump on top of this. If it steps off creep or you step off creep, you're in a world of danger because you just do not have any engage potential against this, even if you have more roaches. So what you want to do here is JimRising is just try to kind of bounce around a little bit. Because this map is very good defensively, there isn't really anywhere to bounce, but if he could grab that spore crawler that he doesn't know about, something like that could end up being nice, considering that the real strategy seems to be using this as a smoke screen to go into some mutts.
It's always difficult to tell exactly how much a Zerg player in any matchup is really going to go into mutts, right? Like, he started up +1 flyer, which seems to say, like, oh, a lot of mutts, and then he also starts up +2 missiles, so that's going to be the big question mark for Erik. And I guess the safest way to play against this, if you really can't, 100% tell, or the player has shown both right in the past, then just do what he did. Stay on 3 bases, not even quite reaching towards a 4th, which might get more difficult to take as time goes on, actually. But then get up to lurkers. That's going to save you against Baneling. It's going to save you against the roaches if they're not hitting an attack beforehand. And he's like an overseer, seeing that that is not going to be an attack beforehand. And then you build up spore crawlers against the mutas. So this will give JimRising an opportunity to expand all over the map and really just soak up all the economy. But, if Erik now being the slower paced one could still get to a very good, better even army and eventually get maxed out.
Yeah. So that's the thing, right? You kind of have to play it so slow when you're not the muta player. But just because it looks like the muta player has like all the power in the world, all the advantages, at some level you got to keep in mind that the mutalisks themselves are not really fight winners. The mutas win if the hydras step off creep and the roaches are able to get on top of them and like actually clean some of them up. Then the mutas come in to clean house and the game ends. But that's why you'll see some players will, I wouldn't be surprised if Erik got a Nidus. Like, if he tried to get a Nidus and just try to kill him with something like that, I could see that happening. But he doesn't have the map vision, right? And we see that with the infestation pit, he's thinking a little bit more, late game focus for dealing with this. He wants to get lurkers, so he doesn't have to worry about roaches, really. Ravagers can still deal with those, though. But JimRising is bringing a massive attack. And I do not... I don't know. There's 6 lurkers together can do it, but the most important thing is that what makes lurkers good isn't just lurkers. Like, at base level, they're okay, but if the roaches walk in... if the roaches walk in and take all the splash, that's one thing. But he doesn't have the upgrades, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Lurkers become a whole different unit once you get tunneling claws and protective talons, and the range upgrade, right? So when you have that, when you get 10 range and they burrow and unburrow instantly, that's when lurkers become cracked. But he's not quite at that phase yet. He's still a little bit vulnerable. He still has a soft underbelly that can be attacked if exposed. So he needs to find a way to get a 4th base, though, because I think that's probably the biggest problem right now. And maybe Vipers?
I think that's eventually what we'll be getting to, actually, is JimRising doesn't quite find a way to crack that defense because Erik doesn't have to be worried about a 4th base yet. He doesn't have to have his units mispositioned when he was still on that very, very low supply. And now that he's on a decent supply to actually maneuver around and split up his army, he'll probably take the 4th base. But JimRising, he goes into his own technology as well. He gets his Lurker Den, he gets his hive, and then we go into, a very fun phase of ZVZ, actually. Viper Lurker, and then eventually Mass Hydra, actually. They're going to start getting rid of the roaches.
Yeah.
So it's, maybe not like the preferable game for Erik at the end of the day. His 4th base really is quite late, and JimRising maybe could even have a 5th base right now. But he survived it. He didn't lose it in a silly way, and now they're going to test their mechanics for that late game army.
That's, you know what? I was going to make a joke earlier about how we've talked about the way that, we talked about the way that like high level ZVZ looks, right? Like Cyril Rayner's ZVZ, we describe as being different because it's crazy because they're like the two players that can push each other to this level, right? But I guess this is a weird scenario where we just get to see it kind of somewhat, you know? We get to see other players do this sort of style, and it's going to be that, can we get the Viper pickoffs that we need? Can we get the parasitic bombs? Will the splits on the mutas be good? Will they not be enough? This sort of thing becomes a really big question because Mutalisks are hard to split. And I don't care who you are. If you ain't Cero, you're going to have a hard time if a couple parasitic bombs land on your Mutaflock. But that's also why he hasn't really doubled down on the Mutalisks either, right? This isn't like some I've committed too far a point. He's got 12 Mutalisks. It's enough to be annoying, but not enough that you're thinking to yourself, I need to shut down everything. And actually, well, there you go. There's 2 parasitic bombs and pretty solid splits thus far, but we'll still lose a couple of extra Mutalisks, more than just the original 2.
Yeah, very proper gameplay here from JimRising. I do like his Muta play. I feel like that's always what I've known him for, like, oh gosh, even like 6 years ago. But, you know, especially when it comes kind of back into the meta and it's just like a good thing to do, I think it gives him the best games possible. But eventually it's not going to be about the mutas at all. In fact, it already isn't about the mutas anymore. Yeah, 12 is annoying, but not really going to do very much. And then it's more about who has the better Lurker Viper control, and then also some decision making as far as how many of each of these units you're going to get. You know, we do see kind of in the similar vein of a PvP or a TvT. You know, some people try and go for more base army units, outposition their opponent, and some people go for the ultimate, you know, 20 Lurker, 6 Viper, and then I'm happy with that, right?
Oh no, don't put that evil on me.
Well, we'll see who chooses what. Right now, Erik with 6 more Lurkers on the way is going to have 15. Or JimRising, of course, has to kind of actually, first of all, give away a few more supply. Maybe his mutas, maybe his roaches. And then we'll see how much he goes into the Lurkers or tries to outposition his opponent. I do like that he's taken the map. Maybe he could have gotten a 5th faster, but he's got a 5th and a 6th now on the way. And he's trying to get some damage done while also throwing away these roaches, very much so on purpose, and use that supply for better things.
Yeah, I was going to say, as you pointed that out, it reminds me a lot of that, the game we cast earlier on, was it Gigantha? The Manus game versus, oh my God, my brain's already fried. Anyway, it was that series, it was that one map where even though everything kind of looked good for Mana, his opponent still did a really good job of just taking all of these bases around the map. And it was just in an economic position where it didn't really matter if things didn't go super well. And I feel like JimRising is kind of approaching that point where if he just gets to take all these bases and Erik can't get any damage done, then him having a really good, you know, quote unquote ideal army may not be able to win in the game just because the passivity that he engaged in to get there at the time that he did, his opponent took the map, right? And that's a big risk you have to deal with. But so far, really good harpooning of these Lurkers, yoinking them over with the Vipers, great abducts and clearing them out as much as possible. But I mean, it's still really hard to engage when the other player also has any number of Lurkers. And surprise, surprise, JimRising still has 8 Lurkers burrowed with this army.
Yeah, his Vipers, I think, were soaking up energy, so they weren't there to try and counter Harpoon. It's a very funny matchup, but that's the way it is. Or at least try and get some of their own Lurkers. You know, at some point we see Vipers harpooning Vipers, and it gets silly, but now that JimRising has full energy, I believe, with the Viper count, we got 6 Vipers versus what is about to be 7? No, it's literally 6 for 6. That Viper popped, so they both have similar ideas. And I guess the only thing that's different is that JimRising continuing to invest into air upgrades a little bit interesting, but then also has +2 Carapace already on the way, and is going to deny Erik's +2 Carapace. When it comes to enough Lurkers, does it matter? Maybe not. When it comes to straight up Roach battles or Hydra, or 2 or 3 Lurkers, I'd say yeah, for sure.
Wow, going in for a Hive Snipe is JimRising, and he's gonna get it. Getting rid of the ability for Erik to build additional Vipers. Now, important to note, he did start 2 Vipers as the Hive was being killed, but I mean, that's a bold move to make. But man, talk about setting somebody back to the Stone Age. So much investment and just time to get back to the lair, get back to the Hive, and then actually building those units. Blinding Clouds right onto the Lurkers and counter Blinding Clouds? Okay. It's, there's a big field of green down there and nothing's really shooting at anything.
things are happening, guys, but kind of slowly, because Blinding Cloud's taking away the power punchers. The Lurkers finally somewhat getting involved back in the action, but as Erik takes a bit of a concave and it ducks into Hydra Queen right now, I mean, but then JimRising has more Lurkers. They're going to come forward. Blinding Cloud on top of Erik, forcing him to move on over. It is a battle that is apparently never going to end. Erik would love a couple more Blinding Clouds, but I think they're both low on energy. Vipers are going down for JimRising as he goes over Hydras and Queens, but he is just reinforcing, and now Erik is desperately bringing back a large chunk of Roaches that really could have helped there.
Yeah, this is ugly too. He needs to make sure he has the detection in play. He has to get rid of the Lurker. The damage that is going to inflict upon his Roach count is catastrophic, and that does eventually get picked off, but is there enough here to actually defend? That's a lot of Hydralisks from JimRising, a lot of DPS with this army, especially considering that he does have a carapace advantage over Erik, and it looks like he's starting to tilt things in his favor, picking off that east side expansion. This comes back to what we were talking about earlier, though, Zombie Grub. This base gets picked off. If JimRising lost one base, he has two other pretty fresh ones that he can work with. Unfortunately for Erik, he's just back down onto 4 bases now against his opponent, who has 6 possible bases they can mine from. I think this is where things just kind of start to spiral out of control. Even though he has 5,000 minerals, the larva count isn't even there from not having enough hatcheries and losing queens in the previous fights.
Exactly, that's what I was going to bring up. He is banking so much, and if he had been able to actually produce during that really scrappy engagement, I think it's actually maybe even. Or certainly he doesn't take any damage from that 5th base. But he was missing all those queens. He only had 1 queen injecting when I looked around, and that was ultimately his problem. Theoretically, he's going to bring this back because his bank is now extreme, and JimRising might have overinvested into trying to kill his opponent, but only if Erik can actually spend his bank. If he had all of his bank out in the field right now, I mean, he'd be, what, up in supply? And he also has better technology. He's got 6 Vipers. He killed off his opponents. Like, all he needs is time, and then JimRising, I mean, eventually he's going to be fine, too, because you're pointing out the economies, but yeah, Erik's not dead, but man, that was a lot harder because his larva was not available.
He literally just has to spend his money, and he can build a stupid amount of Roaches or Hydras to complement this. Every single drop of gas he gets, he can spend instantly, whereas JimRising is, he's doing a good job mining gas himself, but he did not actually get up to some crazy number of drones that he was fully mining off of all of these expansions that we were talking about earlier. And I'll walk back my own statement about the amount of money that he should have had, because he didn't actually saturate those bases. He's only just now, I think, started mining a little bit of the minerals. Yeah, exactly. Just mining them over to the west side base now. There's only 8 mineral mining drones on the northeast base, so he's not actually quite as rich as he was. He's just now added drones to those expansions. He's just gone up to 74 workers. So weirdly enough, Erik's lack of macro, or whatever it was that caused him to not be able to spend his money, doesn't end up hurting him about as badly as maybe it should have.
Yeah. And there's also that JimRising is taking 5,000 more resources lost than his opponent. He is responding to this movement. Erik actually being very bold with this. He has so many Vipers. He just figures all this Blinding Cloud, literally everything on the field, and he basically does literally everything from JimRising. Blinding Cloud right now. I thought JimRising had Vipers. Where did they go? Oh my God, they're coming
from
over
the
now.
top rope. I don't know what else to say here. Oh, he just gave him the people's elbow, Zombie Grub. There's 6 Vipers to try and kill this whole army. That's gonna be a no from me.
I think JimRising had his Vipers on a different hotkey. Like, he might have been waiting for them to gain energy, and that was just a really good timing from Erik, but they were involved way too late into this fight. They're going to try their best to help out, but Blinding Clouds, it's funny how it makes the battle look. It is still going to go favorable for Erik. GG. I can't believe that's how that ended. Now, just like 60 seconds after we were like, well, Erik's down 40 supply. He can't spend his money.
I don't really have anything to add to that. My guess is that all the queens died when he went to snipe the hive, right? Yeah. So I think that's where this started, because for Zerg, you don't really see the impact of that until like a minute or two after it happens, because you usually have some larvae in that moment or hatcheries injected in that moment, but it's all the injections that you don't get when those finish from losing all the queens that turns into, oh, I've got 5,000 minerals and nothing I can do with them. So really well done, by the way. Just you know, he did bounce back and recover once he realized what was happening, which is very impressive because I thought for sure that JimRising was getting into a position to win. But like I said, I also didn't realize that despite taking those bases, JimRising did not actually have workers mining on them. So yeah, you could have 1 million gold mineral patches in your main, but if you don't put workers on them, you don't get the money.
I mean, he was down in the resources trade. Like, he had traded out a lot, and especially in that fight that we thought determined the game, but didn't actually. He lost all of his Vipers, which was probably the most expensive thing he lost.
That also hurts.
But I would go ahead and guess with you that if you went back into the replay, you'd see that he was like oversaturated on like 2 bases, right? And hadn't actually transferred over quite yet or built his gases. Which,
yeah, that's what I was going to say. I would guess that there was probably a base that had like maybe 2 or 3 mineral patches or something with like 20 workers on it.
It's very possible. But that means that Erik plays out the long con. He played the defensive style from basically the beginning and then almost didn't get rewarded for it. He almost got just out, you know, or maneuvered, yeah, I guess to a degree, and then out macroed, but actually brought it back with good trades, which is the beauty of ZVZ. JimRising certainly found himself into a decent position. He had control over the game, maybe a couple more aggressive expansions maybe earlier on, or maybe even take an opportunity to go up to 75, 80 drones and then cut them back as the game went into that lurker phase. He could have maybe done it because Erik was playing so defensive. On the other hand, when you see a Zerg player on 3 bases for that long, I guess you always got to wonder, he's going to all in me. Is Erik just going to desperately do it, which we know he didn't, but you know, lots of things to consider. At the end of the day, it is Erik now up 1, or on the other guy now. In the bottom left, as the red Zerg, he is JimRising.
And his opponent in the Northeast, the blue Zerg player leading the series 1-0, he is Erik. Cool first for the boy in blue in the Northeast.
I mean, it was a 15, 14, I think. I don't think he was overpulled, but
it's not the fastest. It's not the slowest.
Exactly. That's actually quite middle. It's not 12, but it's not 17. Yeah. Interesting.
It's a very boring pool first because it doesn't really say anything. And Erik's probably just gonna take the hatch right after. So, you know, come see, come saw sort of deal.
It's all right. It's okay. Yeah, I think that sometimes, like, I know, oh man, who was it? Darn. It was like it was a European player, but I've seen someone use a similar opener, very similar drone count. I don't remember exactly what it was, but oh, Zanster. Haha. Nailed it. Zanster used this opener and he kind of like was able to convince his opponent that the hatchery was kind of like a normal expansion. It is behind actually from JimRising, so if he compared creep spread, he'd be able to know, but then he just all in. He was just like, yeah, everything's fine. And then he just 2-base all in. And I was like, well, did you have to go for the earlier pull to do that? But anyways, this can definitely be just a setup to be super aggressive. Hatcheries just for that larva, right? And then I've also seen someone do it and then totally predict aggression, and then it was actually just into macro. So with an extractor trick going down, that's weird to see.
Yeah, you know, he ran the lings around the side. He avoided the first Overlord's vision, but when he crossed the path of JimRising's second Overlord, all the lings got spotted. So it's a little bit later than the first Overlord would have seen it, but JimRising is not, he didn't like build a ton of lings initially. So Erik is here with not a crazy amount, but he's going to try and be a little bit annoying with this, put on some pressure. He forced the spine to get started. So that's a temporary drone lost in a best case scenario. And he's going to kill 1. 2 drone kills early on like that. Very nice. Ooh. Very nice.
Nice last second drone cancel. Spine Crawler, because he realized he didn't need it, probably took stock of what his Overlord was seeing, went, oh, okay, that's definitely not anything more. And that is good because that would have been a waste of a drone. And he's actually down drones now. So Erik literally just using it to get a little bit of a faster ling bop. A little bit of a faster, like, you're going to have to wait for your lings to appear and maybe I'll get a couple of drones, which he definitely did. And then he moves on to normal stuff. It's not like it was included with the gas at that time. Actually going to be a pretty, like, even typical ling speed coming down. And then JimRising, once again, going to be skipping ling speed in favor of the Roach. And we'll see if it actually is Roaches or if it's going to be Spire play again.
Yeah, maybe commit I don't know, actually. I was going to say maybe commit more to the mutas, but then he was pretty fast to go up to that hive, Erik was. Maybe there's a way to punish that. Maybe he like fakes him out and tries to do like a really big like roach max timing. I don't know. Like Erik was just so ready to go for that late game tech. You know what I mean? It was almost like he was hoping that JimRising would give him that opportunity, which makes me think that he should try to bait him into being greedy again tech wise and then just try to kill him. I don't know.
And you know, I kind of wish that, and this is like, is just not possible. JimRising doesn't know this, but I think one of the coolest things to do against Erik, who's been very much so just saying, oh, it's roaches, okay, whatever, and going into his own roaches, that's where the secret 20, 30, 40 lings being piled up with later speed would really do well, I think. But that is not what JimRising's doing. It is actually +1 missile, and it is actually going to be going into roaches, or, well, it's certainly not going into a bunch of speedlings. And Erik is correct to match it with his own roach warren.
I mean, it is important to keep in mind that he did still get +1 in roach speed to line up with a roach attack right as he was going into the mutas. So like JimRising, I mean, at the very least, he's faked me out. I'm already assuming that this could still be roaches, or but it could still be mutas, even though it doesn't really look like any sort of obvious type of mutalisk play. But I also, like I said, I mean, attacking earlier could work because it seemed like Erik was very ready to be greedy if given that opportunity. And his +1 and roach speed are going to be a little bit behind, whereas roach speed's a little bit ahead, +1's a little bit behind.
And that +1 might be the most important. JimRising building a lot of roaches right now, and I mean, more than he needs just to defend a third, I would say. Like 7 would be enough. And then he could have gone back into droning, maybe seeing the roaches at all, even though there was only a couple from Erik, so maybe kind of made him a little scared. So we'll see.
Oh, nice save on the drone.
Yeah, very nice save. Still building okay, he's gonna go back on the drones. All right, so no +1 advantage. It's always awkward to move across the map without roach speed. So I was like, is he really gonna do that? But it looks like it was just a defensive maneuver, as Erik was sending roaches across the map. And now Erik's the one actually not just getting roaches, but also getting that supply, the Overlord, you know, swell, I guess. And is he gonna be hitting that +1? And actually with roach speed, that could be deadly.
I think he should.
Yeah.
Like, there's roach speed is just grossly late. He got a second Evo. What JimRising's doing is actually the insane greed. Like, he is just trying to get everything right now without having everything already in place as far as like that third base goes. I think Erik has a pretty decent opportunity to do some bullying over here because there's a little bit more space to work with than on Death Aura as far as the natural/third situation go. Not a lot more. It's still kind of hard, but it's open enough that if he has enough roaches, then with the increased maneuverability of having speed versus the opponent, I mean, could even just walk up, cancel the hatch, and then walk out.
Not going to be quite confident enough to do that. He's actually just going to take the fights. I mean, sizing up how many units are actually in the front line is pretty difficult to do. It seems that Erik, for now, is winning the battle actually pretty darn well. JimRising's out of the fast reinforcements and theoretically should be able to hold this, but I mean, this fight actually went really well for Erik. He is going to jump on top of the reinforcements. He took out the queens, and is this actually just going to kill JimRising? I can't think it will, but it's doing a lot of damage.
He can't run without roach speed. That's the biggest thing. Like, roach speed is about to finish now, but he's already kind of done what he wanted to do, assuming that he's kind of actually, you know what? You know, Zombie Grab, he's still rallying roaches across the map. He didn't try to do anything with that third base during this time, and I wonder now if JimRising, with his defender's advantage, can buy himself a little bit more time on this one. Because once his upgrade's finished, this does get a lot trickier for Erik to try and strike like a finishing blow. And despite everything, JimRising did get roach speed, and JimRising does have a 2 upgrade advantage now with the Carapace and +2 attack finishing. And Erik only just now started +1 armor. So he's got burrowed roaches. That's going to be the next step of this plan, but I don't necessarily know that he's put a button on this one just yet.
No, he's actually, he's in a good position army supply wise, and the tunneling claws can be really good. He gets a couple of drones already, but ultimately, if JimRising just consolidates on 3 bases, clears up the tunneling claws, like his upgrade advantage is really good. And his economy was okay, but now he's starting to lose a lot of drones. He's starting to lose a lot of drones. The third base is actually just straight up under attack. He loses the third hatchery, never mind about his position.
Oof.
2 upgrades are amazing, but it's really going to make up for that.
There's no spore crawlers, Zombie Grub. It's just the 2 overseers trying to run around, following all these units, trying to do stuff, while the drones are, I mean, basically in a free fall, bouncing between the bases. So I think the only thing that JimRising can do right now, if I was Erik, maybe try to burrow these to keep them alive while they're being poked at. But JimRising is just going to force the issue, right? He can't really do anything other than just put all his chips in. With the 2-upgrade advantage, it's going to take a pretty sizable number lead for Erik to actually fight this army.
Yeah, it's not starting off so well. I think he should have held on, actually, just like turtle up in the natural as long as possible, waited to attack with the right side roaches. I mean, JimRising's going to be a little bit scared about a pressure right now being collapsed in on, but he has the numbers, at least currently. Drones are being pulled. Erik knows the situation. He can get rid of some of his own economy after killing that third hatch. He, in fact, still sees that it's not even being rebuilt. So he knows this is do or die. A lot of these roaches are low, and maybe Erik can do something with +1 carapace also finishing up, but he's got no more drones to buffer for him anymore.
I mean, I'm just going to be honest, Zombie Grub. You said it, though. He should have just turtled in his natural. He came out and tried to meet him on the map, but it was +1 versus 2-1. His +1 carapace just finished, but it doesn't matter. He has no way of killing all these roaches because they're just better than his roaches. JimRising was forced into an all-in situation, and he did exactly what he needed to do. And Erik made the big mistake of saying, oh, I could just fight this army. I've got a lot of roaches. No, you don't have a lot of roaches. You're dead. And yeah, this one's going to be tied. Even though there's hardly any drones for either player, does not matter. He does not have a way to stop JimRising from just killing all of his buildings. Even if he had no detection, he could still just kill all the buildings. And this game will end because there is no money.
Very frustrating loss for Erik, and I especially because I'm guessing he's thinking back to that engagement, being like, oh, why didn't I just buy more time? You know, maybe I could have bought time for +1 carapace to finish. Maybe I could have bought more time for just a few more roaches plus the drone pool. JimRising took his opportunity, and it worked out to even up the match. After this break, it'll be game 3 to determine who's the victor.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for us to find out who's going to walk away from this final match of the day victorious. Will it be Erik or will it be JimRising? It's tied 1 apiece. We've had Mutalisks, we've had some Lurkers, we've had lots of Vipers, and so much green gas it literally covers the entire screen. Zombie Grub, your thoughts?
I think that I want another green gas covering the screen scenario, but we're on light shade, so I'm not sure that's going to be most likely to happen. These guys have, I mean, certainly JimRising has been trying to trick Erik a couple more times, and Erik maybe has tried to trick him. But what can he do on light shade? A very short map, and that third base when it comes to those roach battles is going to be quite a treat to watch. But let's get into it. Let's actually see what they start off with. Any early pools? I love when I say it and it actually happens. Erik going for that 12 pool. He's like, you know what? That last pool, it's 2 drones too late. I'm gonna do it right this time.
Right.
In the bottom right.
Is this a 6 pool, Zombie Grub?
I mean, it's also the equivalent of a 4 pool. So in the bottom right, going for it, he is Erik.
And his opponent, presently unaware of the conundrum he's about to face. Will he survive this calamity or will he crumble? He is JimRising.
All right, 12 pool. Is it going to be anything more? We're going to see maybe a drone pool. We had Everdream in the last season be that map, even though it wasn't the shortest map. It still was fairly short. And maybe we could see a developing, I guess, EDZ meta on light shade start right here, right now. With the drone going for a hatchery, it is just going to be a little bit of that earlier pressure. And it might just actually be like last game, he did get something done with the slightly earlier, but not nearly as early pool. And it's like, you know what, this time, I think I'll get a lot done.
I'm excited to see what he can get with this. I mean, the response from JimRising definitely seemed a little bit late. He had a slight heads up, but not really enough of one, because we know one of the things that is kind of easy to forget when you're watching StarCraft, or if you don't play a lot of, particularly ZVZs, spine crawlers take forever to build. Like, spine crawlers have a stupidly large build time. And that's actually only because Zerg players were so evil, they were building them in each other's bases at the start of the game. Like, just to get across. Like, that's how much work they had to do on it. So if you get blindsided, it can get ugly really fast. And I think something to take note of, he's going to nibble on this hatchery. Will he try to chase any other units that come? Is he going to try to dance in a semicircle around it to kill it? Is he going to try to surround one of the eggs before they hatch to see if he can get a couple of free link kills? I don't know. Doesn't look like it. He looks like he just wants to take this hatch and walk away.
It's too far gone, I think. Like, yeah, after it... he's actually gonna take the fight, but he's also gonna get the hatchery, so I guess it's both, right? But there's a certain point where it's just obvious the hatchery can die, and it is worth killing. And he's definitely gonna have that moment. Queen's not gonna pop. Broodlings may get some action. Nah, not really. That is a fantastic opener for Erik, who not only got the hatchery killed, he has most of his lings still alive. Till then, but still.
Well,
oh no! Oh no!
Right.
The 2 lings, he actually got. He
Is he
went for a
gonna
lair.
see that he's going for a lair real quick?
Oh
Real
man!
quick.
Oh.
Yeah. And that other gas is gonna get taken. Interesting. Very curious.
Well, that's not so great. I mean, I believe in JimRising. He's probably been in this situation before. It's not the best situation, but I think he's been here before. But Erik has full information. That was literally the best opener in ZVZ I've seen in a while. Got the hatch, saved most of his lings, and also got the scout on, one base layer, which is very unorthodox, but still, he knew JimRising could do weird things. Fantastic. So, I mean, is there just going to be no Spire, right? Like the quickest Spire ever? Ever?
Ever?
He doesn't have the gas for it.
That's not true. Bly already got the quickest Spire ever.
Is it?
Like, no matter what you think it is, you're like, oh, is it the fastest Ultralisk? It's like, no, Bly already did all of it. Like, all of it. One base swarm host, he's probably done it. He's probably won like a Grandmaster level game with that. when it comes to Zerg creativity, there's actually no fun in it at all, because everything you think you've seen that was cool, Bly actually did, like, you know, probably 700 times.
So Erik, I mean, I really would have expected this to be a Spire. I mean, he just the lair is not doing anything with right now, even though he's got minerals and gas for it. So I'm still, yeah, okay, there it is, okay. Anyways, Erik went for +1 Carapace, and I don't know how many options come from such a fast lair. I could not tell you, but I would think it was only Spire as an option. Erik seems to think that he can actually hit his opponent with, I mean, I don't even know if he's going to hit him with 1-1, but he is getting slightly faster with +1 Carapace than that +1 melee, and he is going to make a bunch of lings and probably just bring the pressure. I mean, how much can JimRising defend when he's going for such an early Spire after taking such extreme damage?
Good question. These lings are going to come up and try to answer it. And the queens with the lings were in a very good spot to deny that, actually, because the power spike is coming, but it is not here yet. When 1-1 and speed is done, like Zerglings that have that upgrade advantage, like a full +1/+1, it's massive. It's disgusting. But you really don't want to lose your lings before that happens. You got to be careful. These campaign Zerglings, they're vulnerable to being surrounded when they don't have that speed upgrade, although it is now kicking in. And once that 1-1 kicks in, like I said, we're going to see JimRising maybe be a little bit caught off guard by that. The most important thing, honestly, about this, though, Zombie Griff, when I look at it, is he's forcing the larva to go into lings right now and all the minerals to be spent. So he's, whether or not he realizes it, delaying any possible Mutalisk play just through that in and of itself. He's going to pull back a little bit, just needs a few more seconds for Carapace. And with that next wave of lings and having finally the upgrades, I think there's definitely big potential here. 8 Banelings are going to be added. On top of it, mutas are halfway out. Of course, they're going to be trickling out individually at this point with the way that they've been staggered in their production. But if the mutas can get some sort of a grip on this without the lings all dying for him, then I think there is a world where he can walk away from this a little bit. But there's so many Banelings. Like, get the Banes to the drones, Banes to the drones, get the Banes to the drones. There we go.
Yeah, now there's 1-1 on these lings. So as they get into the drone lines, there's not much the mutas can do to stop damage from happening. I mean, JimRising might not tap out immediately, hoping that mutas can make a miracle comeback, but he is going to be sent back on the economy. He's always going to have to worry about ling run-bys, so it's not like he can ever confidently send his mutas across the map to do any damage. And if he did, there's going to be, a single Spore Crawler is going to push away most of the aggression. Yeah, everything's looking up for Erik, but I guess never underestimate mutas. A couple of defensive Banelings, perhaps, actually end up taking out most of Erik's lings. Like this, it's still possible. I might have seen similar comebacks in the past, but they are certainly rare.
I mean, on the flip side, it's not like Erik has some insane number of drones, because he did himself also build a lot of units to try and do the attack, even if JimRising spent a lot defending it. Banelings aren't really crazy anymore, since that Carapace upgrade means the Banes won't one-shot Erik's lings. So I like that he's going to keep trying to throw them into that base, but at this point, I think if you're Erik, you need to just slow the game down now, right? Because there's not really much, there's not much big plays you can make with mutas out on the map.
I don't think he got as much damage as he's really hoping for. Like this, okay, well this might actually make up for it.
Okay, well, if you just slide on in.
Yeah, the possibilities are there for Erik with this ling stuff, but not really for JimRising. And his mutas has a lot of damage to take. JimRising, how many mutas does he have? He has 5 eyes. He's gonna tap out. GG.